Yeah.
Good morning and welcome to Move and Bloom, a safe space where together we can grow possibilities. I'm super excited to be here today with my friend Lisa Muser. She is a somatic therapist at Integrative Healing. And Lisa and I started a while back something we call Walk and Wonder, where we walk outside and have conversations interesting to us as somatic practitioners and hopefully interesting to you. Right now, weather and other circumstances are keeping us apart. So we've decided to connect here on Facebook Live. Thanks so
Yeah.
much for being here today.
Yay. We get to talk and wonder and not walk and wonder, but we can move and wonder
We can move and
together.
wonder. Yeah, I liked that
Awesome.
thing you taught me last time where I can look around my space.
Exactly. Yeah. That's oh God,
It's
it's
such a
such an
good one.
important practice for the brain. Yeah, to really calibrate into this actual reality that we're in
Yeah.
is a foreign thing to do, actually. Where our
And if I
brain.
added a neuromovement piece in, I would say when you start to look around, notice where your gaze just goes naturally. Like, what's your
Yeah,
habit?
I love that.
And where do you not look? Like, I tend to not look down. I suppose if I
Okay.
had pets, I'd look down more.
Yeah, right. Yeah, this is fascinating, right? You and I both we track habits for curiosity's sake and learning's sake. And
Right.
so if we are used to, say, I'm looking around in this room, if I only look to the messes, that's going to influence my brain and my nervous system,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
So if I'm not including in my language, that would be like, let's include neutrality because our nervous system really appreciates neutrality or something of that realm. But if I'm
Mm-hmm.
only orienting to what causes me distress, oof, right?
You'll
So
find it.
yeah, what was that?
Yeah. You'll find it.
I'll find it, right. And then like including what we don't often include, like do we often include just looking at the stability of the floor? Well, we take it for granted, but oh my gosh, like this floor is like everything to
Yeah.
me. It's holding my body. I mean, that and the
Isn't it
field of
amazing?
gravity. Yeah,
Yeah.
it really
It's
is.
like my connection to the earth right now. I'm in my basement in the one like square everything. We have this great fireplace in the basement. I guess the previous owners really wanted a fireplace, but the rest of the basement is unfinished, so it
Mm,
makes a great backdrop.
that's
But I'm
so
in my
funny.
unfinished basement,
Oh,
really connecting to earth because the cement
mm,
floor beneath me is
hmm.
connected to earth. So yeah,
Yeah.
I'm
And I'm on the
connected to earth.
third story. And so this is where our minds get blown. I'm just as connected to Earth as you are. And it's like, well, the linear mind's like, how can that be? You're in the third floor.
Mm,
But that is the beauty of energetic connection, right? And the field of gravity, because the field of gravity doesn't change no matter what floor you're on.
I
You could
love
be
that.
on the millionth floor, and the
I
field of
love
gravity is
that.
still nurturing that nervous system, right?
Yeah. And
So,
we talk a lot about our relationship to gravity in my
mm.
work.
Oh yeah,
So
yeah.
we're constantly talking about like, what's your relationship to gravity now?
Hmm.
And something simple, we can become fascinating and wonderful if we just change our relationship to gravity ever so
Yeah.
slightly.
Well, and that
Yeah.
question is not a conceptual, as you know, just for our brains to remember,
Yeah.
that question is not a conceptual question. Like,
No.
what's our relation to gravity? We could go conceptual and be like, well, but the question is actually invited to ask our experiential attention. What is my relation to gravity right now? And as I'm hearing that question and feeling that question and taking it in, my attention goes to the small of my back, and it feels
Mm.
the space of holding behind the small of my back. Now, why? I don't know. It doesn't really matter why, but my relation to gravity in this moment is perceived through my nervous system, through that area, and it's very it's very yummy.
It's very
It's
yummy.
very yummy. So my relationship to gravity is now been altered because your question, so thank you.
Right.
Mm.
And what you did with it. One thing I'm
Yeah.
starting to talk about with students is that it's so seductive for me to think that the meaning is in my words. But the
Mm.
meaning is in the person, because every person has different experiences,
Yeah. Yep.
different histories. And so I have to check in
Mm.
and ask after I've tried to share meaning,
Mm-hmm.
then the recipient does something with it and there's a
Right.
new meaning. So,
Right.
yes,
And the
something changed for
experience, right?
you. Yeah, something changed for you because of my words, but it was your experience in response to my
Yes.
words. Yeah.
So this can take us right into something that I know we both have a shared passion for, and that I wrote on Facebook, and you saw it. It was I had been I spontaneously was doing these movements with my clients of the neck and the pelvic floor, and because we both geek out on neuroscience and movement and
Yeah.
possibility, right? And
Yeah.
also the fine-tuned utilization of attention and the
Mhm.
meaning.
And
I was like, oh, wait till I tell Anna Maria this. So my one of my clients um, had seen a PT practitioner, and let's pause the story just for a moment to say I love PT practitioners. You know, I had one that changed my life that was so
yeah.
helpful in allowing me to get some answers to some issues. So love the profession, love PT folks. And the way that our insurance billing works, the medical system works, they have like usually 15-minute chunks or very short amount of time to be spending time with a person's neurobiology, right? So my client had that kind of experience, and the PT practitioner was like, "Yeah, like, oh, what's your relationship between your breath and your pelvic floor?" And my client was like, "Huh?" You know, like because that's a really big question, right? And if we don't
Yes.
have the experiential meaning making to in that relationship,
Right.
it's like, what's life on Mars like? Right?
Then
So
it truly becomes purely cognitive.
yes, yes, absolutely. Now, her PT person was wonderful, like they just adapted, you know, but and also couldn't connect to that material because they only had such a short amount of time, right? So one of the things I also love about what you do is just that the intricacies and the micro movements are, you have time for that because of the way that you set up your sessions. So anyway,
Yeah.
that's the backstory, but then we went into that relationship of meaning of breath and the pelvis area and the pelvic floor, and it went from being a concept or cognitive into, well, let's just find out. Like, let's just
Yes.
find out, right? Like if we remove a right or a wrong or a good or bad or an actual answer, let's
Mhm.
just play with our bodies and see what our bodies are doing in relation to breath and in relation to the spine and our bones and whatnot.
Yeah.
So that,
Yeah. And that's the beauty of your work.
mm,
Um, in addition to mine, we have time
yeah,
and we come at it from a perspective of play,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So it's not, please learn this thing I am trying to teach you. It's let's together, like I'm going to
Mm,
structure an experience so that you can, and you've done it with me, so that you can play and
mm.
find an answer for yourself for that moment.
Mhm, mhm.
Doesn't mean it's right or wrong. And your answer might be different if you did the same lesson on a different day.
Mhm.
I mean, there would be similarities, but there's so much more freedom there.
Right.
So much more
Yes. We're
freedom. Yeah.
looking for availability that has maybe always been hovering, but we've not known how to connect with, right?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. And I'm going
And
to
that's
slow down a bit because that's,
mm.
you're you're one of the people who really gets my work, so you can like popcorn out all these things, and I have to sort of slow myself down and think,
Oh,
okay, I've got to pick one of those threads to follow
oh,
and
yeah,
come back to the others if there's time later. So I'm
yeah,
just going to sit with that because it's so rich. I'm going to integrate here for a moment.
yeah. Thanks for the
Hmm.
invitation.
Yeah. Thanks for
Ah,
giving me the grace to do it. Ah, yeah. So you and I talk a lot about the things we do. And for someone listening casually, it might sound like, oh, that's something I can do when, whatever.
mm.
And let's talk for a minute about how the things we do actually affect change in the brain. How do we actually get brain change?
Hmm. Well, I mean, science tells us that it's repetition. So science tells us that we have to bring cognitive conscious attention to what we're doing and do it more if we want those neural pathways to be developed into a new habit or a new healthy routine. And science tells us that that habit can start to switch. I think it's around the 17-day mark or something like that, but it can take like 180 days or even longer, depending on the groove of the neural pathway and depending on the learning and depending on lots of other variables, right?
Right. And you said repetition, and that's true.
Mm. Mm.
The caveat is because a lot of people ask me, well, what's the difference between the lessons I give and maybe something that a physical trainer would teach them or a
Mm.
PT?
Mm.
And besides the fact that what I do is really slow, small, and subtle, um, none of the repetitions that we do in my work are mindless. And sometimes we need mindless repetition. I'm not dinging
Sure,
repetition.
sure.
If I'm learning to run long distance,
Mm.
I
Hmm.
need to be able to just go on autopilot and run, 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 run. If I'm
But
looking
even
to
with that one, we want to bring in attention to how our body's in alignment,
absolutely,
right? So yeah, like we need to bring that conscious cognitive piece is really, really important. Otherwise, we might start
right.
running with like, for me, I used to be a runner and I learned barefoot running, I think it was called, or
Yeah,
G running. And so
yes.
I had to really use my full attention, where the weight of my body, the
Mm-hmm.
relationship to gravity, where my
Yeah.
foot was landing, where my back was, where my head was, right? All that stuff was a
You have to
part of what.
track all those
Yeah.
sensations and
But
integrate all
after a
that.
while, I probably didn't have to as much, right? And that's what you're talking
Right.
about. Like after a
So
while, you
then
can
it
go running.
became more automatic.
Yeah.
But but in that beginning phase, especially,
Mm-hmm.
we need to be slow and feeling into it because the minute we go mindless, and we have a choice, we can go mindless whenever we want, but the minute we go mindless is the minute that we're becoming really automatic. There's no longer choices, right?
That's right.
Then I become like a machine
Yep.
that's not thinking anymore, not going to do it any differently.
Yep.
So if you want choice
And change.
and change, right? So let me bring it back. So we
Yeah.
need repetition, but with attention, awareness, feeling, all that good stuff. We need time,
Mm-hmm.
which means what for the people who are looking to affect change in their lives?
Yeah. I mean, this is like one of my favorite topics to geek out on, like this is going to lead me right into talking about community of practice
Okay.
because when we have people with us doing practices, it's a motivator, it's inspirational, and it's a reminder, of
Okay.
of the importance of practice. So when we are doing new practices, so in my course, the matrix integration exploration, the the delight of that exploration is in the practices and is in the community, and that's what makes it
Mhm.
effective, is that we get together and we do these practices and there with each other doing them, and we're fine tuning them, and we're getting curious, and we start to notice when we do them from mindless habit, and then can we do an adjustment so that we can make the practice even more in line with service or what we're wanting, is I guess we
Mhm.
could say. We could, any practice can be done, like you said, mindlessly, and any practice can be done to really get to know ourselves, to really slow down, and even brushing our,
Mhm.
our teeth, it's like, oh, what is it
Yeah.
like to feel my
Mhm.
toothbrush in my mouth? And I'm in relationship
Mhm.
now with the moment of flow. right?
Yes.
And so yeah, we slow down to do those practices daily, and we witness each other, and we accept each other,
Yes.
and we are, you know, in co-creation with each other, and we do adjustments with each other, right?
There's
Yeah. What,
something really important in what you said. So it's not just community, it's being able
hmm.
to share the changes, because
Yeah.
I ask people to keep a journal of the changes they're noticing in themselves.
Hmm.
And, sometimes they remember to do it, sometimes not. Um,
Hmm.
when you share changes with other people, though, and I invite people at the end of my lessons to always share whatever changes they felt,
Yeah,
no
I love
matter
that.
how small,
Yeah. Yeah.
because that tells our brains, oh, this is important.
Yeah,
This is
right?
something I might want to amplify, even.
Yes. Yes.
So, your
Which is
community
empowering.
practices, it's not just empowering, it acts to amplify your practice,
Mm. Right.
right?
Right. Yes.
Amplify the learning.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. How often do you guys meet?
We meet, so in the beginning, we meet every couple weeks in a live setting, not not live in person, but on Zoom.
Yeah.
But then we meet daily I use Slack as a gathering place.
You meet
Slack is,
daily.
well, yeah, we don't meet in person, but we post daily if people want.
Ah,
So people, you know, we assume that we are empowered, resourceful people needing support. And so people are invited to post as much as they want. And you kind of can track the impact of the practices by the
mm,
engagement. That's just science. That's not morality, right? So
yes.
people get to practice daily if they want, and they notice the changes from that, or they don't
Yeah.
practice daily and then they notice that, right? So it's just a learning no matter what. It's not a right or a wrong. It's like, oh, when I do
Yeah.
this more frequently and check in daily, I'm in relationship to me and y'all, and we're together, you know, and so the whole fluidity of existence is together.
That's
But
beautiful.
yeah, yeah, it's a
Yeah.
it's a beautiful opportunity, right?
Yeah. I love that. I didn't realize that about your work. It
Mm,
makes me really happy because, you know, being a business person in 2022 is so far challenging. And
mm.
so something we do in our work is playing with the focus of our attention, which I know something is you do as well. But where we place the focus of our attention can really change an experience. So, in an effort to make myself, to
Mm.
nourish myself as a business person, I have changed
Gosh.
my focus of attention to, I want everything that I do, like speaking with you, like whenever I sit down to do something, to be in the service of connection. So
Oh my gosh.
right now I get to love on you, right? When I sit down to write a social post, I'm going to think of
Mm,
one or two of my students, past or present.
mm,
And even though it's not addressed to them because I want to save their privacy, I'm
mhm,
loving on them. Like,
mhm.
so
That's
I
beautiful.
love it that you have a daily
Mhm.
opportunity for your
Yeah.
people to love on each other.
Yeah,
This is
right.
great.
And I just, because some people might be like, this is so laborious, you know, it can take 5 minutes to do practices, right? So
Exactly.
it's very, it's not a lot of time,
No,
but a lot of
one line, one
change.
line.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly.
Mm. Well, and I
Exactly.
gotta say,
That's,
like my own, the communities of practice that I'm also a part of, that I'm not leading,
yes.
are what changed my life. I mean, I'm in a couple of them, and I am
Oh,
daily engaged in them. Other than my own
yeah.
integrative healing community, I'm in other communities, and I'm in them daily. And it's
Yeah.
just an experiential shift in everything. I mean, it's so hard to express the impact it's had on my life, uh,
Yeah.
but it's significant. Um,
Yeah. Can you think of one thing that's really changed for you prior
my
to having
trust with life.
practices?
My trust with life, my relationship
Oh,
with life is significantly different.
so
Uh,
how does that manifest for someone who doesn't have a felt sense of what trust with life might be?
Well, I mean, I'll just speak for myself as a
Of
survivor.
course.
Um, as a survivor, there was a learned distrust for people and life herself, right?
Yeah,
Um, which is a completely valid response.
of course.
Right?
Of
Like, why
course.
would one have an abundant trust for life when one is not getting, what they need?
Yeah.
So learning that and believing that took me into, far into my adulthood in certain
Mhm.
ways, even though I've been exploring in lots of
Yeah.
in ways through my life, but it just stuck around, and really what shifted it was entering communities of practice where I got to see other human beings and feel other human beings on the regular and see
Mhm.
their underbellies
Mhm.
and um, have strong support in the creation of a container and in the creation of practices. So the practices are really, really important. If you just throw a
Yeah,
bunch
yeah.
of people together and don't have practices of integrity, things just go willy-nilly and you start to get real interesting trauma bonding. Right? Not good. I've been
True.
in those communities
True.
of practice too that are trauma bonded of
Okay.
communities. So you gotta the integrity piece is super, super important. But when you get that, it starts to take
Yeah.
care of the health of the community. And
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm curious, how has witnessing other people's change in the communities you're in as a participant rather than a leader, how
Mhm.
has witnessing other people's change um, affected you? Because that's something we don't get to do if we're practicing on our own.
Right, we don't get to see that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a great question. It
You
does,
don't have to have an answer.
yeah, I don't think I will have a succinct answer, but I can feel how it leads back into that trust uh, realm. There's just something in witnessing and having my humanity reflected back to me through
Mm,
somebody else that conveys that a wholeness almost. It conveys a wholeness. It conveys this is a WH wholeness. It
yeah.
conveys that a unity. It conveys a normalization of the human journey and that
Yeah.
we are on a journey of learning, not
Hmm.
perfecting, and we don't need to dominate to feel our wholeness. In fact, we can't feel our wholeness when we are dominating. So it alleviates that protective layer as a survivor, that protective layer to protect and guard, kept
Yes.
me in separation, right? And so
Hmm.
in that community, allowing all those layers to dissolve as other people's layers are dissolving, and then we're just witnessing and being with each other's
Yeah.
humanity, really.
Yeah. That's beautiful.
Mm.
And I'm thinking about what I've witnessed in the groups I've been, because of course I'm still in training. I'm trained to do what I'm allowed to do right now, and I just keep adding more to that. I'll be in training forever. So when I'm in training, um, it's really interesting. There's several parts to it, but one is that when I hear about someone else's experience, sometimes their habits are different than mine.
Mm,
So
mm,
where they perceive a change is somewhere that I haven't thought about.
mm,
And I can go, oh, well, the next time I do that, I'm going to shift my awareness, shift my attention there and see what I notice.
mhm,
Right? It contributes to that wholeness.
mhm.
It also allows me sort of to feel the really broad range there is of experience,
Yeah.
and to
Mm,
feel like no matter where I am, there's always someone with me.
mhm,
I don't know
yes.
if
Oh, yeah.
I, and that seems like such a simple, obvious thing to say, but
Mm,
really it's not. It's one thing to know that there's always someone who's going to do it a little differently than me. It's another thing to see that we're all going to do something a little different with this simple motion of raising the foot and putting it down,
mm.
and
Yeah,
that we can all make it work in
yeah,
different ways.
Yeah. Well, right.
So that,
So honoring difference and being in
yes.
connection, right?
And adding to our own wholeness by bringing in parts of ourselves that we didn't even realize were there
Right.
sometimes.
Yep. And our cohort members will reveal that to us, will be our teachers, right?
Yeah. And they're also useful because when I'm in training with someone who's um, needing the same level of instruction. Because as a group leader, it's hard to remember. I mean, we remember, but it's hard to be in the experience of learning something for the first time.
Mm.
And so having someone with you who's really gets it
Hmm.
is so amazing. Like,
No, right. Yeah, you're being awkward together, maybe.
or going, really? One day I'll be able to do that? You're kidding me, right? Like in disbelief
Oh, that's
together,
cool.
right?
Yeah.
Whatever it is you're feeling, like, yeah, right, you're kidding. That's why it's nice to have someone with you, someone you can look to who's your
Mm.
future self. So
Hmm.
it's
Hmm.
just so wonderful to
Yeah.
have these communities
Yeah.
that practice together.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing a little snippet of your communities, of your
Yeah.
practice. That's great. I love that.
Yeah. So the doors to your matrix integration for this coming year are still open, right?
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay.
So if people are interested in some, experiencing, gosh, how to say it, like are interested in learning a new thought technology, you might
Yeah.
say. Maybe what they've been doing before has been useful, but they want to just learn a different way. And they want to be able to have some support in it. So they're not just giving some information and then cast off. And also, if maybe, I had really strong individualism patterning. So maybe I
Ah,
know there's a lot of us that come in, we might have a little bit of an avoidant attachment style. And we actually don't want community because, I mean, we do and we don't, right? It's that like desire
I get
for
it.
intimacy and fear of intimacy, which pretty much all
Mhm.
8 billion of us have on some level: fear of intimacy, fear of rejection,
Yeah.
and actually a need and a DNA programming for intimacy, right? So
Yes.
it also provides a container, a safe container to be curious about that, to be curious of how, ooh, now I'd rather do it on my own, right? That we know the outcome of that.
Yeah.
We know it's not a great outcome. And if we work with clients, then we're perpetuating a dominant narrative approach in
Mhm.
ourselves. And then, it's like we'll have a film over us that keeps us from being able to see possibility with regard to not only where we can go, but where our clients might go. Right. So I think
Mhm.
as practitioners, I'll speak for myself. I always have been curious of what is creating separation for me. And I always use
Mhm.
myself as a guinea pig. And then I have brought that learning to my work with my clients and asking curious questions and practicing different ways of utilizing attention, which is like the most precious gift that we have, to see how that separation might, that perception of separation might be shifted.
Mhm.
So, gosh, there's a lot that's like going on in my attention right now, and I hope some of those words made sense because it's
Right. Right. And I kind of understand what you do, sort of. Um, uh, because I've had some sessions with you. I have not participated in the matrix integration. Um, and so I'm trying to think of a question that's going to help pull out maybe like, so if someone's wondering, wait, if we all feel separation, is this for all 8 billion people on the
Hmm.
planet, or is
Hmm.
there a group that you tend to have gravitate towards your work more often than not?
I mean, wow, that's a great question. I think it could be for anyone in any profession, to be honest, who just has a sincere interest in connecting in ways that they've not known how to connect, to have a life that brings them fulfillment.
There you go.
and
Okay.
and to be curious of what is keeping them from having a more fulfilling uh, life, the life that maybe they want to live or lead. um,
Mhm.
you know Suffering for me has been a great motivator. I mean, I just
It'll
have to
make
be
you
honest.
act quick.
What was that?
It'll make you act quick.
Yeah, I mean, just it's there's nothing more motivating for me than suffering. I don't like it.
Mhm.
I really don't like it. As a survivor, I came up with a gajillion strategies to maneuver, right, and to try to hide and protect and whew, you know um,
Mhm.
respond to that trauma. And at some point, they stopped working, and my life just kept getting, I'll use the word unmanageable, and my strategies just didn't work anymore. And I kind of had to um, get real serious in myself, because I really didn't want to be on this planet anymore. I
Yeah.
really didn't. There were a couple things keeping me here, but if it hadn't been for those folks, I probably wouldn't be here right now. I just didn't want to be here. So it was very, very serious. And that suffering, I just didn't want it. I decided I'll do anything. I'll look at any of my patterning, try any practice, do what feels counterintuitive, feel hard feelings, have hard
Mhm.
conversations, feel shame, immense shame that I
Mhm.
had,
Mhm.
um, so that I can not experience XYZ anymore.
Right, right. So as I'm hearing this,
Mm,
I'm translating for the layperson in my head,
mm,
and
mm,
let's try this on for size. So for for people who might have, like you, adopted certain strategies that have kind of worked for them, but they still feel kind of disconnected, either from themselves or from life or the people around them,
mm,
you offer experiential community learning
mm,
that um, will help you learn new ways of thinking, the thought technology.
mhm.
They're not just strategies, it's the
Yeah, it's
whole
very different.
package.
It's really a
it's
rewiring. That's
it's
what my course is.
really
Yeah.
working with the brain,
Mm.
um, through these gentle practices to see how you can be more here, more whole.
Yeah. Or yes,
Yeah.
to connect to the wholeness
Yeah.
that is here, but
Yeah.
we've not known how to connect with or
Beautiful.
believed was possible. Yeah. And folks that join my exploration are not always suffering, to be honest, very much. They want to keep connecting into, yeah, they want to level up, or they want to keep connecting into the what's possible in their
Yeah.
relationship to abundance and well-being. So
Yeah.
I know I went into my own personal story
Thank
is
you.
what it is, but most folks that join in are, luckily, thank goodness, not at rock bottom like that.
I'm glad. I'm
I
glad.
know.
But
I'm
it's for wherever you are. There's
exactly,
lots
yeah,
of people in the room doing it lots of different ways.
absolutely. And
Yeah.
we're all learning the same thing on some level. It looks differently,
Exactly.
but it's
Exactly.
it's we're all bound by the same interesting culture that teaches
Yeah.
us things, and how we can move past those teachings into other realities that are here.
Yeah.
Mm.
So if you want to upgrade your brain, you have to engage
I mean, you
in
do.
a
Yeah.
personal, you have to engage in practices. And if you
Yeah.
have a community that supports you, even better.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. What
Yeah.
are you, I'm just gonna look at the time. Yeah. Tell me something about like what you're gonna be taking into 2022. Like I know like the past couple of years have been so interesting, particularly for you learning what you've been learning.
Mhm.
And then to have the COVID come in and shut down your in-person practice, and then you reopen, which I was all excited about, and then it's
Yeah.
closed back down. And like, yeah, we can look at it so many days, talk about thought technology, right? If we use a particular thought technology, be like, okay, what are the opportunities here with what is?
Mhm.
What are the opportunities that are not necessarily easy, but are revealing themselves to you in light of our current reality of COVID?
Yeah, yeah, it's really interesting because I'm a big one for um, values clarification and sitting
Mm,
down to do
mm,
visioning and I
mm,
did do some of that at the beginning of the year and some great stuff came out that I should like memorize, right? But
mm,
I had to go back to the basics because it is really challenging to have this basically hands-on in-person modality and then
mm,
have to take breaks from it, but still
mhm,
wanting to serve my
mhm.
people.
Yeah.
So, of course, we have Zoom, but I continue to invite people to join me for my community class on Zoom, which is now Friday mornings at 10 a.m.,
Mm.
or for privates on Zoom. And those work pretty well. It's amazing how
Yeah, I can attest
adaptable
to
we
that
are.
because I did that, right? I was
You did that for a
attending.
long time.
I
Yeah.
did like that first year of COVID.
Yeah.
It kept my my hips aligned and out of
Yeah.
needing to go to a chiropractor for a year. Just doing online
That's
sessions
so
with you is so
wonderful.
profound. Yeah.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
Mhm.
And I love the physical benefits. And even more, I'm in love with just the opportunities for personal development. It's
Mhm.
just where I go and I seem to attract, you're not the only one, I seem to attract therapists, a lot of
Mm.
therapists
Yeah.
really connect with the work. That doesn't mean if you're not a therapist, you're not going to connect. But I think it's what I came down to when I was visioning was that
Mm. Mm.
what I really want to do at the base of it all is help you connect to yourself. I want you to have an experience that allows you to connect to yourself so that you can discover or rediscover what resources you have,
Oh my
right? So
gosh.
that you can reach inside yourself, reach inside the us that is all of us,
Mm.
and pull out what you need because you are amazing. You are amazing. And so I
Mm.
haven't gotten around to it, but I would like to invite my former students and current students, and
Mm.
perhaps prospective students, to um, get in touch with me and let me know how that might look in a non in person environment.
Mhm.
Because just because it's been done one way doesn't mean we can't imagine something new. And that
Mm.
is really part of
Yeah.
the work, the creativity. Like,
Yeah.
we just keep coming back the way the lessons are structured. It's the structure that matters, it's the essentials that matter.
Yeah.
So, what can we make it look like?
Oh gosh. Well, I love that. Like I can feel that vibrancy and curiosity. And I'm also just like, I'm feeling a couple of phrases that you shared. One, which is coming back to the basics.
Mm,
I mean, holy smokes, the basics are everything,
yeah.
right? And they don't have like a time, what is it? Like they don't run
No
out of,
expiration. No
no
expiration
expiration.
on the
That's it.
base.
They don't run out of that's how profound the basics are, which,
Yeah.
as you probably know experientially, I know experientially, I used to like poo-poo the basics. I'd be like, no,
Right.
and
We've all done it.
the basics are the gold, are gold for the nervous system and the brain. They're everything. Abundance comes from the basics,
Yes.
but it's our programming that is really oriented to other things, and that's okay.
Mhm.
We can just slowly learn, like, oh, what happens when I include the basics? Um, and then when we do learn that, it reminds me of this other sentence you said, or you named, connecting to what resources we have. Okay,
Mhm.
so we are we are such a resourceful creature.
Oh my God.
I was with this beautiful community of practice yesterday, and one of the participants said, um, um, she's an indigenous person. She said, I have such advantages of being coming from an indigenous culture. And, she can tap into resourcefulness with such ease on some level, right?
Mhm.
And as a white European, who was trained to disconnect from my land advantages or my resourceful advantages of having relationship with land,
Right.
I began to rely on my white privilege, right? And that makes for a very fragile person, right? So immense
Right.
fragility. If we're relying on our privilege,
Mhm.
we become very fragile. And so it reminds me that when we can connect to the resources that we have, we are connecting um, to maybe what has always been here, but we just did not know how to connect. We did not know how to connect. And that is the most empowering thing of my life to know, right? And that's really what we're doing in our communities of my community of practice, right?
Exactly.
So we're
Yeah.
like, so I'm kind of going back to your question, like, who's this course for? Who's this exploration for? And it's so I really hate answering that question,
I
but
know.
I know you can see me squirm. It's like, ah. But the ideal, there is something ideal or attuned about somebody who's like, gosh, I really want to learn a different way. I really want to
Yes.
learn. I'm a change agent, and I'm in this culture of domination, and I know
Yes.
there's different ways, and I keep getting hooked in to the culture of domination.
Hmm.
I know there's
Hmm.
another way, right? And there's this dissonance that happens, and
Yes.
I'm like, that person is the ripest person for this exploration, honestly, because they know
Right.
already what's waiting
Yes.
for them. They already know there's a different way of being, but their
Yeah.
bodies may not know it yet. And through this
Yeah.
exploration, their bodies get to know it, like through the rewiring of the brain and the somatic system. So
That's perfect. If your brain is screaming, there's got to be a better way,
there is a better way, and I'm living
and
proof
you're
of
in that
it.
search. Yeah.
Yeah.
Lisa's great resource. Yeah.
Oh, and
Yeah.
oh gosh, thank you so much for lifting up that sentence. Like the resources that we have, it is so empowering and important to be consciously connecting with our resourcefulness. Whether it's
Yeah.
just to learn how to get up from a chair differently,
Right.
huge,
Hmm.
right? How to align like, oh my gosh.
Or even a body part that feels good can be a resource. If you've
Yeah,
ever been in like horrific pain, just being able to shift your attention to those parts of you that feel whole still
yes, yes,
can bring peace. Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
feeling a lot of gratitude for you right now, like really in my lower body. I just
Oh,
am feeling
nice.
so much warmth and engagement um, and just appreciation for the things that I've learned in doing the one-on work and the group work. Like all of it over time has allowed me to be in a healthier relationship with so many different parts of me, have like woken up those relationships within me. And
Hmm.
I mean, I think we're here to learn and to wake up, to be woken up, and if we can do it
Yeah.
with people like you, I'm all for
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. And I love it. You always bring me back to, oh, wait, what am I feeling in my body right now? I tend to separate my practice from my, like, now I'm being my human in front of a camera self. But I do. I think about it and I think, oh, I feel zippy. I feel enlivened by this connection we have. Like,
Mm,
I just more energy coursing through me. And it's exciting to talk about these things with you and to know. I
mm,
mean, it is really empowering. Talk about empowering to know that there are people out there, like people that you would feel safe with.
mhm.
I kid you not, but I feel totally safe with you. I always enjoy our conversations, and I'm grateful we were able to get together today via Zoom. Thank
You
you so
too.
much.
Thanks. Feeling lots of love. Lots of love. Bye for
Ciao.
now.
Bye for now.